sustainable growth. We can't continue to do business as usual. Stewardship, shared values reflect an emerging corporate consensus on CSR. When people first started talking about corporate social responsibility, I think they were the tree huggers of the social network. They're people who just, this is a good thing to do and you do it because it's good. And I very honestly, I don't think CSR has gotten much respect as a result of that. Notice I said, right before I gave this talk, we started getting more data. This is a Wall Street Journal report from a group in Germany. Do you know these people? Or? All right, so we have a colleague from Germany in the room who knows this organization. Are they reputable? I hope. No. Oh. We didn't practice this, you can tell. Commitment to improving social and environmental conditions in the developing countries where a company operates is the key to maximizing the profits and growth of those organizations. And their conclusion after studying over 200 companies is the companies most engaged in social and environmental sustainability are also the most profitable. So folks, the new data is it's not only good to do good, it's profitable to do good. There are two NGOs that I want to share with you, and I mentioned one is the United Nations Global Compact, and the other is the World Confederation of Productivity Science. Now, I already told you I'm closely affiliated with WCPS, being an officer, but I've also, as of this past Tuesday, been designated as the single point of contact between the United Nations Global Compact and WCPS. So it's part of my job. If you have not heard of the United Nations Global Compact, let me tell you a little bit about it. Kofi Annan, when he was Secretary General of the United Nations, officially launched the Global Compact, and that was in July of 2000. It links companies whose actions it seeks to influence, and then governments, labor organizations, and civil society organizations that create the context. This is why I mentioned to you context, because the United Nations Global Compact is part of the context in which we are practicing productivity today. There are now almost 6,000 companies, organizations, labor organizations, civil society organizations, but 4,600 of them are corporations that are affiliated with the Global Compact in 100 countries around the world. But consider this. There's a difference in the values, the core values of the United Nations and of corporations, because the UN focuses on peace, prosperity, poverty reduction, and protection of human rights. Corporations look on profit, stakeholder value, and growth. The important to recognize is that these objectives increasingly overlap. The 10 principles of the United Nations Global Compact reside in 4 different major areas. One is human rights, and the first 2 principles are businesses should support and respect the protection of internationally proclaimed human rights, and then be sure that they're not complicit in human rights abuses. So that's proposition number 1 and 2. Labor standards, there are 4 more. Businesses uphold the freedom of association and the effective recognition of the right to collective bargaining. So recognize that employees have the right to bargain collectively, eliminate all forms of forced and compulsory labor, abolish child labor, and eliminate discrimination in respect of employment and occupation. Now, while I was at the United Nations Global Compact, one of the keynote speakers was the CEO of Coca-Cola, And I think if you pay attention to what Coca-Cola is saying today, you'll understand that they are vitally involved in sustainable and environmental protection. But the 1,000 people who attended that meeting ultimately were divided into small groups of 6 people each who met together with a focused discussion and facilitated discussion. And I met some people in that discussion who basically made my day or made my life, one of the two. I learned something from, and I'm going to tell you more about this organization, but one thing I learned was the difference, quote, between child labor and working children. Farms have lots of kids. Why do they have lots of kids? Because they work on the farm. So you have children working on farms, but that doesn't constitute child labor under this definition, because this definition is it's compulsory, it's abusive. Now, the question is, if kids have to work on the farm, when do they go to school? And we'll talk about that. The third area of concern for the United Nations Global Compact is precautionary approach to environmental changes. They use very careful words in the United Nations. Precautionary approach to environmental changes. Undertake initiatives to promote greater environmental responsibility and encourage development and diffusion of environment-friendly technologies. And finally, anti-corruption. Work against corruption in all forms, including extortion and bribery. There are people today, you can find them anywhere in the world, who say bribery is a cost of doing business. The United Nations is saying bribery cannot be part of the cost of doing business. It must be abolished. So those are the 4 basic areas and the 10 principles. And if you sign on to the Global Compact, you agree to be guided by those principles in the way you do business and the way your customers and suppliers do business. I'd encourage you, if you don't know about this, just Google, I Google everything, or Wikipedia, it doesn't matter. Google United Nations Global Compact and see what they're up to. It's just astounding. Those of us in the United States live in a cocoon, and that's why I like to come to Europe, because I get to find out what's going on in the rest of the world. We never hear about this in the US of A. Organizations that affiliate with the compact agree to communicate. In fact, it's called a COP, a Communication on Progress. And every 2 years, the corporations affiliate are requested to make a communication on progress. What have you done for us lately? Civil society organizations like WCPS, it's a little more lax, maybe 3 years before you give your COP. I have one that's due. Let's see, what month is it now? And I just saw, right before I came here, that the United Nations Global Compact had disaffiliated